Imagine being forced to torture your own parents, not once but repeatedly, for decades. Imagine perfecting techniques of interrogation and agony on the two people who gave you life, while a wound in your hand screams with divine punishment every time you hesitate. Now imagine you don't remember they're your parents. This is what happened to Shadowheart. For 50 years, she practiced the arts of torture on 2 prisoners in a dark temple, never knowing she was hurting her own mother and father, never knowing her name was Jenevelle, never knowing that the goddess she served with absolute devotion had stolen everything from her and convinced her it was a gift. Tonight, we're unraveling one of gaming's most disturbing stories of manipulation and identity. A tale where the hero tortures her own family while believing she's righteous, where memories are currency and a goddess feeds on suffering, where the simple act of remembering your own name becomes an act of rebellion. This is the story of Shadowheart. Or rather, this is the story of how Jenevelle Hallowleaf was destroyed and how Shadowheart rose from the ruins. Settle in, get comfortable, because this journey into the Forgotten Realms goes to places darker than any dungeon. Picture, if you will, a Nautiloid ship. Not a vessel of water, but one that tears through dimensions, through the very fabric of reality itself. Mind flayers pilot this grotesque craft, their tentacled faces bent over strange controls, their psionic powers reaching out like invisible fingers to probe and manipulate. Inside one of the organic pods that line the ship's walls, a woman struggles. Half-elf, dark hair pulled back severely, a single strand falling across her face. Green eyes that flash with determination even as terror threatens to overwhelm her. On her hand, a dark mark pulses with pain, as if punishing her for her fear. Her name is Shadowheart, though she cannot remember if she has ever been called anything else. Her memories stretch back only a handful of years, fragments and pieces that never quite form a complete picture. She knows she serves the goddess Shar, the Lady of Loss, the night singer who rules over darkness and secrets and things best forgotten. She knows she has a mission, one of vital importance to her faith. And she knows that the artifact she carries, the mysterious object that burns with strange protective magic, must reach Baldur's gate at any cost. But she doesn't know why. She doesn't know where it came from. She doesn't know why her goddess would entrust such a task to her specifically. Most troubling of all, she doesn't know why she can't remember. Shadowheart has been told that her memories were taken as an act of devotion, that she willingly gave them up so that she could not betray her mission should she be captured and tortured. It made sense when Mother Superior Viconia explained it. It made sense when the pain in her hand flared up at moments of doubt, reminding her that questioning Shar's will brings only suffering. What Shadowheart doesn't know, what was carefully erased from her mind, is that her conversion to Shar took nearly 50 years. Half a century of breaking down a child's will, piece by piece, memory by memory, until nothing remained of who she had been. What Shadowheart doesn't know is that during those long decades, she was given prisoners to practice on. 2 prisoners who never broke, never converted, no matter what techniques she perfected on them. She doesn't remember their faces. She doesn't remember their screams. The Mirror of Loss has taken that from her too. Perhaps that's a mercy, or perhaps it's the cruelest part of all. But in the quiet moments, in the spaces between prayers and duties, a question whispers in the back of her mind. Who was I before I became this? The question never gets an answer. The pain in her hand makes sure of that. The Nautiloid shudders. Something has gone wrong. The mind flayers are in disarray, their normally perfect coordination shattered by some unseen threat. Flames lick at the organic walls. The ship is falling, plummeting toward a world below, toward the Sword Coast. toward a crash that will scatter survivors across a beach and set in motion events that will shake the foundations of the Forgotten Realms. In her pod, Shadowheart clutches the artifact tighter. Whatever happens, she must protect it. Whatever happens, she must complete her mission. Even if she doesn't remember why. Even if she doesn't remember who she really is. If you look closely at Shadowheart's right hand, you'll see it. A mark. Circular, dark as a moonless night. It resembles a bruise that never fades, or perhaps a brand burned so deep it has become part of her very flesh. This is the wound of Shar, the physical manifestation of her goddess's hold over her. It is not merely symbolic. The wound is agony. Sometimes it comes as a sharp spike of pain, sudden and breath-stealing. Punishment for thoughts that stray too close to forbidden territory. Other times it's a dull, persistent ache, a reminder that she is never truly alone, that her goddess watches always. The pain has no pattern she can predict, no rhythm she can brace herself for. It simply is, as constant and inevitable as shadow following light. Shadowheart has learned not to speak of it, has learned not to complain. Suffering, after all, is sacred to Shar. Loss is holy. Pain is proof of devotion. But sometimes, in camp, when she thinks no one is watching, she'll cradle that hand against her chest and close her eyes, breathing slowly through another wave of torment. Sometimes a companion will notice the way she winces, the way her jaw clenches, the way all color drains from her face. If asked, she deflects. A minor injury. Nothing to concern yourself with. She's fine. She's always fine. She has to be. The truth, though she would never admit it even to herself, is that the wound terrifies her. Not because of the pain, though that would be reason enough. No, the wound terrifies her because she doesn't know why she bears it. She knows it's connected to her mission, to her devotion to Shar, to the memories she willingly surrendered. But the specifics elude her, locked away behind walls in her own mind. Mother Superior Viconia told her this was necessary, that to carry the artifact safely, to ensure its delivery to the cloister in Baldur's Gate, her memories had to be suppressed. If she were captured by Selûnite heretics or Githyanki warriors, or any of the countless threats between her and her destination, they could torture her all they wished. They could peel her skin from her flesh, could burn her with fire and acid, could break every bone in her body, and she would have nothing to tell them, because she doesn't know. The genius of it, Viconia had said with something like pride, is that ignorance becomes the perfect armor. You cannot betray what you do not remember. It made sense at the time. It still makes sense now, in the logical part of Shadowheart's mind that remains devoted to Shar's teachings. Loss is sacred. Forgetting is a gift. The dark is where truth resides. But another part of her, quieter and growing louder with each passing day, whispers that something is wrong, that the pieces don't fit quite right, that a goddess who demands her followers forget themselves might not have their best interests at heart. The wound pulses. Shadowheart gasps, pressing her palm flat against her thigh until the agony recedes to its usual background murmur. She does not voice her doubts. She does not question. At least, not yet. The Underdark is a place of alien beauty and lurking horror. Massive mushrooms tower like trees, their caps glowing with bioluminescent light. Subterranean lakes stretch out into darkness so complete it seems to have weight and texture. And in the deepest caves, where few surface dwellers dare to venture, rare and wondrous things can be found. The noble stalk is one such wonder, a mushroom with curative properties beyond any healing potion or clerical spell. It can restore health, certainly, but its true gift is far more precious. The noble stalk can restore memories, can bring back what has been lost to time or trauma or deliberate suppression. When Shadowheart's companions present it to her, explaining what it might do, her first instinct is to refuse. The memory suppression was voluntary, she insists. It was necessary for her mission. To try to overcome it would be defying Shar, and such defiance brings only suffering. Her hand throbs as if to emphasize the point. But her companions are persuasive. And if she's being honest with herself, somewhere deep inside where the doubt lives, she wants to remember. Wants to know who she was before Shadowheart. Wants to understand why wolves make her hands shake and her breath come short. Wants to know if the empty spaces in her past hold answers to questions she's afraid to ask. She eats the noble stalk. The effect is not what she expected. There's no flood of revelation, no sudden clarity washing away decades of fog. Instead, a single memory surfaces, small and specific, and oddly vivid. She is young, younger than she thought she could remember being. Other children surround her, initiates in the cloister of Shar. They're mocking her, calling her unworthy, questioning why someone like her was even allowed to train among them. The reasons are unclear in the memory, lost to time, but the shame is sharp and fresh. Then another child steps forward, a tiefling boy with curved horns and a kind smile. Reynold. His name surfaces in her mind like a bubble rising through water. He tells the others to leave her alone. He sits with her in the darkness of the cloister and tells her that she belongs, that the goddess chose her for a reason, that they'll both become great in Shar's service one day. The memory fades. Shadowheart stands blinking in the present, her heart racing. Reynold. She had a friend. Someone who showed her kindness in a place where kindness was rarely given. If she can find him in Baldur's Gate, perhaps he can tell her more. Perhaps he remembers what she has forgotten. It is a thread, thin but unbroken, leading back to a past she thought was completely severed. The threads multiply as their journey continues. In the shadow-cursed lands, amidst the twisted remnants of what was once verdant wilderness, she finds a night orchid. The flower is beautiful and deadly, its petals the color of twilight, its scent sweet and cloying. One touch to bare skin could mean death. But when she sees it, something in her chest tightens. This flower means something. She knows it means something, even if she can't remember why. When a companion presents one to her, carefully wrapped so it poses no danger, she's surprised by the emotion that wells up. Gratitude, nostalgia, a sense of being known that she didn't realize she was missing. Night. Orchids were her favorite once. She's certain of it, even though the memory of why refuses to surface. And then there are the wolves. The first time the party encounters a pack of wolves on the road, Shadowheart freezes. It's instinct, immediate and overwhelming. Fear crawls up her spine and locks her muscles in place. She sees their yellow eyes gleaming in the darkness, hears their low growls, and for a moment, she's somewhere else entirely. She's young, running through a forest at night. It's part of some ritual, some test she's supposed to pass, though the details are hazy. And there's a wolf, massive and terrifying, bearing down on her. She's going to die. She knows she's going to die. But then figures in dark robes appear. Sharan priests. They drive the wolf back, save her life, take her to safety. Her first memory of the goddess's mercy. Except the memory feels wrong in a way she can't articulate. The wolf's eyes, in that frozen moment before the priests arrived, weren't filled with the mindless hunger of a predator. They were filled with something else, something almost like recognition, desperation. And when she tries to focus on that moment, when she tries to understand what she saw in those eyes, the pain in her hand flares so intensely, she nearly blacks out. The message is clear. Some memories are meant to stay buried. Some truths are too dangerous to remember. But the question remains, whispered in the back of her mind. What kind of truth requires divine punishment to keep hidden? The shadow-cursed lands are dying. Darkness has consumed the region, a curse so potent it transforms the living into hollow shells and corrupts the very ground beneath their feet. Only those with special protection can traverse this blighted realm without succumbing to the curse's effects. Shadowheart finds that she has such protection. The curse touches her, but does not take hold, as if Shar herself has placed a shield around her faithful servant. It should feel like a blessing. It should feel like proof of her goddess's favor. Instead, it feels like a leash. The source of the curse lies in the Gauntlet of Shar, an ancient temple buried beneath the land, accessible through the Grand Mausoleum. This is where Shadowheart's journey has been leading all along, though she didn't know it. This is where she will either achieve her greatest dream or lose everything she believes herself to be. The Gauntlet is a place of trials. Each one tests a different aspect of devotion to Shar, a different shadow that the goddess demands her followers embrace. The soft step trial requires stealth and cunning, moving through darkness without disturbing it, becoming one with shadow rather than merely hiding in it. Shadowheart excels here. She has always been good at going unseen, at moving through spaces without leaving a mark. Only later will she wonder if this skill was learned in devotion or in survival. The self-same trial forces you to fight a perfect copy of yourself, to overcome your own reflection, to prove you can defeat even the parts of yourself you might wish to preserve. Shadowheart emerges victorious, though the battle leaves her shaken in ways she doesn't want to examine. There's something deeply wrong about destroying yourself, even a magical copy, something that feels less like devotion and more like erasure. The Faith Leap trial demands blind trust, walking across invisible platforms in total darkness, relying solely on faith that the path exists. One misstep means plummeting into shadow. Shadowheart's companions watch as she walks confidently into the void, and for reasons none of them can quite articulate, it's one of the most disturbing things they've witnessed. That kind of absolute faith, that willingness to step into nothingness because you've been told to, seems less like devotion and more like the behavior of someone who has been very carefully conditioned to never question. In the silent library, guarded by undead dark justiciars who attack any who make sound within its halls, Shadowheart claims the Spear of Night. It is a legendary weapon, beautiful and terrible, forged specifically for those who would become Shar's chosen champions. She holds it and feels power course through her. This is what she has trained for. This is her destiny. But as they descend deeper into the Gauntlet, as they solve the final puzzles and place the 4 umbral gems that will unlock the path to the Nightsong, Shadowheart's goddess begins to speak to her directly. The voice comes in her prayers, whispers in the darkness of her mind. Shar tells her what she already knows, that to become a dark justiciar, the highest rank a follower can achieve, she must kill the Nightsong. That this has always been her purpose. That everything she has endured, every loss she has suffered, has led to this moment. Shadowheart grips the Spear of Night tighter and tells herself this is what she wants. This is everything she has dreamed of. To be Shar's champion. To achieve greatness in the dark. To finally be worthy. The wound in her hand pulses in time with her heartbeat. She does not let herself think about the fact that she's afraid. The Shadowfell is not a place meant for mortal minds. It is Shar's domain, a plane of existence where darkness has weight and emptiness has substance. Here, the very concept of light seems like a half-remembered dream, something that might have existed once, but could never exist again. In the heart of this realm, bound in magical chains, a figure kneels. This is the Nightsong. Or rather, this is Dame Aelin, an Aasimar, daughter of the goddess Selûne herself. She has been imprisoned here for over a century, her immortal essence tapped and drained to fuel another's invulnerability. Her suffering has been endless, her captivity absolute. And now, finally, someone has come to either free her or finish what Shar began all those years ago. Shadowheart approaches with the Spear of Night held ready. This is the moment. This is what everything has led to. She will drive the spear into the Nightsong's heart, will complete her mission, will prove herself worthy of Shar's favor. She will become a dark justiciar. She will finally understand her purpose. Aelin looks up at her, and there is no fear in those golden eyes, only sadness. "I know you," Aelin says, and Shadowheart's blood runs cold. "You know nothing about me," Shadowheart snaps, but her voice lacks conviction. "I know you were taken as a child," Aelin continues, her voice gentle despite her chains. "I know Shar has lied to you. I know you are more than the dark wants you to believe." Shadowheart's companions watch tensely, ready to intervene but uncertain if they should. This is her moment, her choice. They can offer guidance, can express their concerns, but ultimately the decision must be hers. One companion speaks up. They don't try to stop her outright. Instead, they simply say, "Don't do it, Shadowheart. Don't kill her. You'll regret it." Shadowheart laughs, but it sounds hollow even to her own ears. "How would you know what I'd regret?" "She knows something about you," her companion insists. "Something about your past. Spare her and see what she has to say." For a long moment, Shadowheart stands frozen, the spear trembling in her hands. The wound on her palm screams in agony, Shar's fury at her hesitation made manifest. "Kill her," the pain demands. "Kill her now. Complete your purpose, become what you were meant to be." But Aelin speaks again, and her words cut through the haze of pain and conditioning. "The wolf in your memories," she says softly. "The one you believed would kill you. That was no wolf, Shadowheart. That was your father." The spear clatters from Shadowheart's numb fingers. My father?" The words come out broken, disbelieving. "Arnell Hallowleaf." Aelin continues, her voice gentle despite her chains. "A werewolf, blessed by Selûne. He transformed to reach you faster, to save you from the Sharans who came to steal you away. But you didn't know about his lycanthropy. You were too young. All you saw was a wolf, and when the Sharans arrived and drove him back, you thought they were saving you." The memory shifts, reshapes. The wolf's desperate eyes make sense now. Not a predator hunting prey, but a father trying to reach his child. The Sharan priests weren't heroes. They were kidnappers, and they'd just subdued the one person who could have stopped them. Everything she remembers about that night is a lie. Not a merciful rescue, but the moment her entire life was stolen from her. "They took us both," Shadowheart whispers, the pieces falling into place with sickening clarity. "Didn't they?" Aelin nods. "Your mother too. All three of you, imprisoned in the cloister of somber embrace, but only you forgot who they were." The implications crash over Shadowheart like a wave. The two, prisoners she practiced interrogation on during her training. The ones who never broke, never converted, no matter what she did to them. The ones whose faces had been carefully erased from her memory each time the mirror of loss took another piece of her past. Those were her parents. She's been torturing her own mother and father for decades, and Shar made sure she'd never know. Baldur's Gate sprawls before them, massive and ancient, a city where every street corner holds a story, and every shadow might conceal danger. Somewhere in this labyrinth of stone and steel and suffering, Shadowheart's past waits to be uncovered. The House of Grief seems like an innocent enough establishment from the outside. It advertises itself as a place where the bereaved can find solace, where those who have lost can come to terms with their grief. Only those who know what to look for would recognize the subtle symbols of Shar worked into the architecture, would understand that grief, in this context, means something far darker than simple mourning. This is the Sharan cloister in Baldur's Gate. This is where Shadowheart was supposed to deliver the artifact. This is home. Or at least what she has been told is home. Inside, a woman named Miri greets them with a smile that doesn't reach her eyes. She recognizes Shadowheart immediately, though there's something in that recognition that feels more like disappointment than welcome. "The Mother Superior is expecting you," Miri says, and Shadowheart's stomach drops. Mother Superior Viconia Devere, the woman who shaped Shadowheart into what she is, the woman who holds the answers to every question Shadowheart has been afraid to ask. They descend, down stone stairs worn smooth by centuries of footsteps, down into the cloister of somber embrace where shadows have texture and silence has weight. The other Sharans they pass watch Shadowheart with expressions ranging from curiosity to contempt. She is both returning hero and potential traitor, and no one seems quite sure which designation will ultimately apply. Viconia waits in the temple's heart, a drow woman whose years of devotion to Shar have only sharpened her already formidable presence. She looks at Shadowheart with eyes that have seen too much and feel too little. "You've returned," Viconia says. Not a welcome, not a greeting, simply a statement of fact. "I have?" Shadowheart replies, and hears the way her own voice shakes. What follows is a confrontation that will determine everything. Viconia expects Shadowheart to kneel, to present the artifact, to report on her mission's completion, and accept her place as a dark justiciar. After all, Shadowheart killed the Nightsong, didn't she? Proved her devotion? Earned her place at Shar's right hand? Except Shadowheart didn't kill the Nightsong. She spared her. She chose mercy over duty, light over darkness. And in doing so, she chose to reject everything Viconia spent decades conditioning her to become. The battle that follows is brutal. Viconia does not go quietly into defeat. She has other Sharans at her command, other dark justiciars who have already achieved what Shadowheart refused. They fight with the cold efficiency of those who have surrendered doubt along with everything else. But Shadowheart and her companions prevail. Viconia falls, whether killed or simply defeated depending on the mercy Shadowheart chooses to show. And with her defeat, the way opens to the Chamber of Loss. At the back of the temple, past Viconia's sanctum, a door awaits. It requires a silver key to open, looted from one of the fallen Sharans. Beyond it lies a chamber lit by strange, colorless light. And in that chamber, two people hang suspended in magical chains. Shadowheart's breath catches. She knows them. She doesn't remember them, but she knows them in the way you know your own reflection, in the way you know the rhythm of your own heartbeat. This knowledge goes deeper than memory, bypasses thought entirely, and settles into her bones with the weight of absolute certainty. But there's something else. Something that makes her blood run cold. She recognizes their scars, the specific patterns of old wounds healed and rebroken over decades. She recognizes them because she put them there, even though she doesn't remember doing it. "Mother," she whispers, looking at the woman whose fingers she broke during interrogation training. father, looking at the man she learned the art of Sharan torture upon. Arnell and Emmeline Hallowleaf have been imprisoned here for 50 years. 50 years of torment, used as leverage against their daughter, used as practice subjects when Viconiah needed Shadowheart to learn the techniques of the Sharan faith, used as living reminders of what defying Shar costs. The worst part? Shadowheart excelled in those lessons. Mother Superior Viconiah often praised her aptitude for extracting information, her steady hand during interrogation, her ability to inflict maximum suffering with clinical precision. Shadowheart felt pride in that praise, pride in her growing mastery of Shar's dark arts. She was hurting her own parents, and she was proud of how well she did it. They look at Shadowheart now with eyes full of love and sorrow and a terrible, terrible forgiveness. They don't blame her. They know she didn't know, but Shadowheart will have to live with this knowledge for the rest of her life. And then Shar herself manifests. Not physically, not in the way mortals understand presence, but undeniably. The darkness in the chamber deepens, gains intention, gains malice. And Shar speaks, her voice like the absence of sound rather than sound itself. Shadowheart. Shar intones, and even hearing her own name from the goddess's metaphorical lips makes the wound on her hand scream. You have disappointed me, but I am merciful. I offer you a choice. The choice is simple and impossibly cruel. Shadowheart can free her parents, can release them from their chains and their suffering. But if she does, she remains bound to Shar forever, the curse never lifted, the pain never ending. Or she can let them die, can watch them fade into moonlight as their souls escape Shar's grasp, and in doing so, she frees herself completely. Her parents, seeing her hesitation, speak first. Free yourself, Arnell says, his voice rough from disuse, but firm with conviction. We've suffered for 50 years, but we can endure it if it means you escape. We love you, Jenevelle, Emmeline adds, and it's the first time Shadowheart has heard that name, her true name, spoken aloud. Your suffering ends here. Let us go. Jenevelle, not Shadowheart. That name was given to her by her captors, by the woman who stole her from her parents and spent half a century twisting her into a weapon. Shadowheart is what Shar made her, but Jenevelle is who she was born to be. The companions who have traveled with her can offer support, can pass checks of religion or persuasion to help her see another path. With their help, with enough trust built between them, there is a third option, a way to save her parents and still break free, though it means accepting that the curse will never fully leave her, that she will always carry the mark of what was done to her. In the end, the choice is hers, and Shadowheart, Jenevelle, chooses life, chooses her parents, chooses to bear the burden of Shar's curse if it means her family can be together again. Her parents fall from their chains, and for the first time in 50 years, they hold their daughter, the woman they knew as Jenevelle, the child they raised in moonlight and faith in Selûne, the daughter Shar stole and Viconiah broke and remade. They tell her the truth, all of it. About the night she was taken, when she was supposed to complete a Selûnite ritual, an ancient initiation rite where children are sent into the wilderness at night to find their way home by moonlight, to prove their faith and their capability. About how Shar herself commanded the kidnapping, recognizing in young Jenevelle a perfect vessel to twist into a weapon against Selûne. The reasoning behind Shar's choice remains unclear. Perhaps it was simply Jenevelle's Selûnite heritage, or perhaps the dark goddess saw something in the child that made her a particularly valuable prize. What is certain is that Shar gave explicit orders to Viconiah de Vere. Take the child, break her, and groom her to one day replace Viconia as Mother Superior of Baldur's Gate. Arnell had learned of the kidnapping plot after capturing a Sharan spy. He knew they were coming for his daughter. So when the time came for Jenevelle's initiation, he followed her into the woods, taking his wolf form to move faster through the forest. His intention was to protect her from the shadows, to ensure the ritual went safely. Jenevelle had never known her father was a lycanthrope. He'd planned to tell her when she was older. When she could understand that lycanthropy wasn't a curse, but a gift from Selûne, who watches over good-aligned werewolves and grants them control over their transformation. But that explanation never came. Instead, Jenevelle saw a massive wolf bearing down on her in the darkness and believed she was about to die. And then the Sharans arrived. They drove Arnell back with dark magic, subdued him with spells designed specifically to bind lycanthropes. They captured both father and daughter. Emmeline, searching desperately for her missing family, was taken shortly after. All three were brought to the Cloister of Sombre Embrace, that hidden temple beneath the House of Grief. And there began the long process of making Jenevelle forget everything she had been. They used the Mirror of Loss, that cursed artifact that trades memories for power or simply devours them entirely. The game's lore describes this mirror as a Sharan relic that can extract and store memories, leaving victims hollow and malleable. Over and over, across nearly 50 years, they forced young Jenevelle to stand before that mirror and surrender pieces of herself. Her name, her parents' faces, her worship of Selûne, her love of flowers and animals and light, her fear of the dark. Every memory that might make her question Shar's will was stripped away and locked in that terrible mirror. The process wasn't quick. Her parents watched as their daughter was brought to the mirror again and again, each time emerging a little more empty, a little more compliant. Viconia was particularly cruel about this, making sure Arnell and Emmeline understood that every memory their daughter lost was their fault for raising her in Selûne's faith. When the memories were gone, Viconia filled the emptiness with lies. She told Jenevelle, now called Shadowheart, a name chosen to mock Selûne's light, that her parents had died defending her from the wolf, that Shar saved her when Selûne abandoned her, that pain was holy and loss was sacred, and that her true purpose lay in serving the dark. And then came the final cruelty. Viconia gave Shadowheart prisoners to practice on. 2 stubborn Selûnites who refused to convert, who needed to be broken through proper Sharan techniques. Shadowheart learned interrogation on these prisoners, learned torture, learned how to inflict maximum suffering while keeping the victim alive and conscious. The prisoners were her parents, and every time Shadowheart hurt them, every time she perfected a new technique on their flesh, the Mirror of Loss took the memory. She would wake the next day with new skills and no recollection of how she'd acquired them. The perfect system. She gained experience without guilt, and her parents suffered knowing their own daughter was their torturer. This detail, that Shadowheart unknowingly tortured her parents during her training, comes directly from her father Arnell's dialogue in the game. When the player asks what happened during Shadowheart's time in the cloister, he explicitly states, "They had you use us for practice. All the techniques that the Sharans hold pride in. Trickery, interrogation, torture." For 50 years this cycle continued. Now, standing in the Chamber of Loss with her parents' arms around her, and the truth finally spoken aloud, Jenevelle Hallowleaf allows herself to weep. Not for who she was, because she'll never fully remember that girl. The Mirror of Loss took too much, and what's gone is gone forever. The mirror still stands in this very chamber, just beyond where her parents were chained. If Shadowheart approaches it now, if she tries to use it to reclaim what was taken, the mirror will refuse her. It recognizes her. She has no memories left to give, having surrendered them all across 5 decades of conditioning. The mirror is full of Jenevelle Hallowleaf's childhood, her love, her innocence, her very sense of self, and it will never give them back. This creates a terrible irony. Other party members can use the mirror of loss, can trade memories for power, and then have those memories restored through magic. But Shadowheart, who gave more to this cursed artifact than anyone, who fed it her entire identity piece by piece over 50 years, can never reclaim what she lost. The mirror has taken too much. There's nothing left to bargain with. So she weeps for the life Shar stole, for the 50 years her parents spent in torment, for every moment she believed the lies and hurt people in the Dark's name, for the girl she was who loved moonlight and flowers and swimming in forest pools, for the daughter who tortured her own parents and felt pride in her growing skill, for all of it, and for the fact that most of it is lost beyond any hope of recovery. And when the tears finally stop, when she can breathe again, she makes another choice. She keeps the name Shadowheart. Her mother protests. "You're Jenevelle," Emmeline insists. "That's who you were, born to be." But Shadowheart shakes her head, and there's steel in her voice when she speaks. "Jenevelle is lost. The mirror of loss has her, and I'll never fully get her back. But Shadowheart is mine. I claimed this name. I gave it meaning, and I say what it means." She looks down at her hand, at the wound that still aches, that probably will always ache. "You can't cast a shadow without some light," she says quietly. "Shar tried to make me into pure darkness, but even shadows need light to exist. So I'll keep this name. I'll make it mean something new." Her parents, understanding what their daughter is really saying, simply hold her tighter. She is Shadowheart, not because Shar made her that way, but because she chose it. She is the shadow cast by Selûne's light, proof that you can survive the dark and come out the other side, changed but not destroyed. She is Shadowheart, and she is finally free. When you look at Shadowheart after these revelations, after the truth has been spoken and the choices made, you might notice the most obvious change first. Her hair, once black as a raven's wing, has turned silver white. It happened overnight, the morning after she spared the Nightsong and rejected Shar's path in the Shadowfell. The cause of this transformation remains a mystery, though there are theories. Some believe it's Selûne's influence, the Moon Maiden's power flowing into her lost child the moment Shar's hold weakened. The timing would support this. The change occurred immediately after Shadowheart chose mercy over murder, light over darkness. Others suggest it might simply be the physical manifestation of casting off a burden she'd carried for so long, the way extreme trauma can age someone overnight. The stress of learning the truth, of defying a goddess who had controlled her entire existence, could have shocked her system enough to cause such a dramatic change. Shadowheart herself doesn't much care about the explanation. She just knows that when she looks in a mirror now, the woman looking back is someone she's still learning to recognize. The silver hair feels right in a way the black never did, as though her body is finally matching who she truly is, rather than what she was forced to become. The change goes deeper than appearance. There's a lightness to her that wasn't there before, a genuine warmth that occasionally breaks through her natural reserve. She smiles more easily, laughs more readily. The sharp edges that Shar honed so carefully have dulled, or perhaps simply been revealed as armor rather than her true self. But the wound remains, that dark mark on her hand. Shar's final curse pulses with pain whenever Shadowheart strays too close to thoughts the goddess would rather remain unexamined. It's a leash that can never be fully removed, a reminder that some scars run too deep to ever fully heal. Shadowheart has learned to live with it, has learned that pain can be endured without being embraced, that suffering isn't sacred, it's simply suffering. Some days are worse than others. Some days the wound flares so intensely she can barely think through the agony. On those days, her parents are there, or her companions, offering support that asks for nothing in return. She is learning what it means to be cared for without conditions. It's harder than she expected. The mirror of loss still holds most of her memories. Those moments are gone, truly gone, and no amount of noble stalk or divine intervention can return what was willingly given to that cursed artifact. She will never remember her childhood fully, will never recall the exact sound of her mother's laughter or the feeling of her father's hand holding hers when she was small, will never know if she preferred summer or winter, morning or evening, if she had friends before Reynold, if there were hobbies that brought her joy. But here's the cruelest twist. The memories weren't truly given willingly. When Viconia says Shadowheart willingly surrendered her memories, she's using the same logic abusers always use. A child can't consent to their own brainwashing. A prisoner can't willingly give up their identity when the alternative is torture. Shadowheart was told that offering her memories to the mirror was an act of devotion, that it would please Shar, that it would make her worthy. She was conditioned to believe that self-erasure was holy. The game reveals this through careful details. Viconia used the mirror on Shadowheart more than any other acolyte. The frequency wasn't necessary for the mission. It was cruelty, breaking down a child's resistance through repeated violation of her mind. Young Jenevelle initially resisted the indoctrination, but after enough trips to the mirror, after enough pieces of herself were cut away, she had nothing left to resist with. That's what makes Shadowheart's story so disturbing. She didn't choose to become Shar's weapon. She was made into one, and then convinced she'd chosen it herself. That girl, Jenevelle Hallowleaf, exists now only in her parents' memories. And sometimes, on quiet evenings around the campfire, they tell her stories of who she was. The girl who collected flowers, the girl who loved swimming in the forest pools, the girl who would sneak out of bed to watch the full moon rise, drawn to Seluna's light with an instinct she was too young to name as worship. Shadowheart listens to these stories and feels a strange sort of grief. Not for herself exactly, because she can't miss what she doesn't remember, but for the life that was stolen, for the woman she might have become if Shar had never noticed one unremarkable Selunite child in the woods. Her parents notice this grief and love her through it. They tell her that who she is now, who she became despite and because of everything that happened, is someone they are proud to know. That trauma doesn't erase worth, that you don't have to remember your past to deserve a future. These are lessons Shadowheart never learned in the cloister of somber embrace. These are truths Shar would never speak. And so she listens, and slowly, painfully begins to believe. The story of Shadowheart is ultimately a story about identity and the violence of erasure, about what it means to have your sense of self deliberately destroyed and rebuilt in an image that serves someone else's purposes, about the long, difficult road to reclaiming yourself when the tools of that reclamation are imperfect and the damage runs bone deep. It's also a story about choice, about the moment when you realize that what you've been told is your destiny is actually just a cage someone else built, about the courage it takes to walk away from the only identity you've known, even when that identity was forged in trauma and wrapped in lies. Shadowheart was made to be a weapon for a goddess who feeds on suffering. She was conditioned to believe that loss was holy, that darkness was truth, that her purpose was to bring others into Shar's cold embrace. Everything about her education, Her training, her entire existence was designed to strip away choice and replace it with absolute devotion. But in the end, she chose differently. She chose mercy over murder. She chose her parents over her own freedom from pain. She chose to keep the name her abusers gave her and make it mean something new. These were her choices. No one could make them for her. And in making them, she became more than what Shar intended. She became herself. Not Jenevelle, lost to the mirror of loss. Not the perfect dark Justicia that Viconia tried to create. But Shadowheart, complicated and damaged and healing. A woman who carries the dark but isn't defined by it. Who casts a shadow precisely because she stands in the light. That is what was lost. A childhood, a past, a name, decades of memories. That is what was found. Choice, truth, family, and the understanding that you can survive having your identity stolen and still become someone worth being. And so we come to the end of Shadowheart's journey to reclaim herself. Or perhaps it's more accurate to say we've reached the end of this chapter, because recovery from that kind of trauma is rarely linear, rarely complete. There will be setbacks. There will be days when the pain in her hand is unbearable, and she wonders if freedom was worth the cost. There will be moments when she catches herself falling into old patterns of thought, old Sharon teachings rising unbidden from the depths of her conditioning. There will be nights when she wakes in a cold sweat, remembering in fragments what she did to her parents, when she looks at her hands and sees them as weapons, when the weight of 50 years of torture, both endured and inflicted, threatens to crush her completely. But there will also be mornings when she wakes to sunlight and doesn't flinch away from it. There will be moments of laughter with her parents, connections made with companions who value her for who she is rather than what she can do for them. There will be the slow, steady building of a life that she chooses, piece by piece, day by day. And perhaps most importantly, there will be the understanding that she was a victim long before she became a perpetrator. That the child who was kidnapped and broken bears no responsibility for what the broken adult was forced to do. That healing is possible even when forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, seems impossible. Her parents have already forgiven her. They watched their daughter torture them for decades and never once blamed her, because they knew the truth she couldn't remember. She was a victim too. Now Shadowheart must learn to forgive herself. It's the hardest battle she'll ever fight. And unlike the enemies she faced on her journey, this one has no clear solution, no final boss to defeat. Just the long, difficult work of learning to live with what was done to her and what she was made to do. But she doesn't face it alone. And that, perhaps, makes all the difference. Shadowheart's story is ultimately a story about the violence of erasure. Yes, about identity theft in its most literal and horrifying form. But it's also a story about the resilience of the human spirit, about how even when everything is taken from you, your name, your family, your very memories, something essential remains. That essential spark is what allowed Shadowheart to hesitate when ordered to kill the Nightsong. What made her question, even through 50 years of conditioning and pain-reinforced compliance? What gave her the strength to choose differently when every part of her training screamed at her to obey? Some might say that spark was Jenevelle, surviving somehow beneath layers of Sharan indoctrination. Others might argue it was simply the human capacity for empathy, too fundamental to be fully erased even by the mirror of loss. The game doesn't provide a definitive answer, leaving it to the player to interpret. What we do know is this: Shadowheart was made to be a weapon for a goddess who feeds on suffering. She was conditioned to believe that loss was holy, that darkness was truth, that her purpose was to bring others into Shar's cold embrace. Everything about her education, her training, her entire existence was designed to strip away choice and replace it with absolute devotion. But in the end, she chose differently. She chose mercy over murder. She chose her parents over her own freedom from pain. She chose to keep the name her abusers gave her and make it mean something new. These were her choices. No one could make them for her. And in making them, she proved that even after 50 years of systematic destruction, even after being forced to torture her own family, even after having her entire identity stolen and replaced with a lie, she was still capable of choosing compassion over cruelty. That's the real story. Not just what was done to Shadowheart, but what she chose to become despite it. Not Jenevelle, lost to the mirror of loss. Not the perfect dark justiciar that Viconia tried to create. But Shadowheart, complicated and damaged and healing. A woman who carries the dark but isn't defined by it, who casts a shadow precisely because she stands in the light. Rest well, dear listener. Let these thoughts settle gently as you drift toward sleep. And remember, we are all more than what was done to us, more than our worst moments, more than the lies we were told about ourselves, even when we believed those lies for 50 years. We are the choices we make when finally given the chance to choose. We are the people we become when we step into the light. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into one of gaming's most harrowing tales of trauma and recovery, please consider subscribing to the channel. There are so many more stories waiting to be told, so many more journeys through the rich lore of gaming's most compelling worlds. Until next time, sleep well. And remember, even shadows need light to exist.